The next question comes from Don in Alma, and this was such a good question that we are going to eventually give an entire podcast episode to answering this question much more in depth. But the question itself from Don says, we would like to know camera positioning for multicam situations. Where do you point them and when to switch them? Don, thank you for this question. And this is, like we said, this is a big deal. We've got a lot of schools that in the last year and a half have really started to expand into multicam situations, wireless camera solutions. And so we have the ability, a lot of schools are adding the ability to put a wireless camera pretty much anywhere. So the question is, where is that? Again, this is going to be an entire episode, probably here in a few weeks. But for now, we want to give you some quick kind of high-level notes. And the first high-level note is the rule of 180 degrees. And this was actually an education resource that we put out in the fall, and I think I even did an original Tech and Teaching before we did it as the podcast and the show and everything. But the 180-degree rule is if you drew an imaginary line down the middle of your playing surface, so we're in winter, so let's talk basketball for right now. But if you went hoop to hoop and you drew a dotted line down the middle of your basketball court that went hoop to hoop, right down the middle of the rim, whatever side your main camera is on, you would want your secondary camera to not cross that middle point, that midpoint, that 180-degree point of the gym. The reason for that is you don't want your second camera, pointing back towards your first camera, because what that does is it changes the perspective of your viewer. And if your viewer's perspective goes from, hey, my team has been going this way the whole time, and then all of a sudden you show them a camera angle and they are now going this way, it literally takes the brain a second or two to reorient itself, even though you're watching the stream.
It's very exhausting to watch, actually.
Yeah.
You have to, brain capacity.
Yeah, you literally are putting it on your viewers to have the mental capacity to understand, oh, they're going to this shot, and now it's at this hoop, even though it looked like they were going to that hoop before. So what you want to do is and this doesn't matter. We have a graphic that we're going to show actually here that we got from ESPN3. Doesn't matter if you have 2 cameras or 6 cameras. You should not cross that 180-degree line so that your perspective as a viewer never changes. Now, there is kind of some very small and very technical ways that you can break that rule, but you don't want to be doing it a lot, and you got to be very careful about breaking it.
Yeah.
The better way to do it is just not break the rule.
That's the safest.
Yeah.
We can get into those.
We can get into that. And then when do you switch them? The general rule of thumb, do not switch camera angles while the main action of a play is ongoing. For instance, real quick, football, snap, quarterback hands it off to the running back. Running back was running outside. You could tell it's going to be he's got a long way to run. Then he gets tackled. Then you switch to your secondary camera, which is either showing the tackler in an ISO cam shot, or it's showing the reaction of the bench, or it's showing the reaction of the cheerleaders, or something like that. But we don't want to switch midway through a play and then have our camera perspective change. It would be similar to, in the basketball scenario, switching and showing that the hoop suddenly flips directions. We don't want to do that mid-play. In basketball, we don't want to have a play develop. Suddenly a person drives from the top of the key. They take 1-2 good dribbles. Now they're going to the rim. Everybody can see that they're going to the rim, and suddenly we switch camera angles, and now it's the hoop cam, and they're coming at us. No. Let that play, let that shot finish. And if he makes it or they make it, outstanding. Now you can switch. As soon as that ball goes through the net, now you can switch to your secondary camera and get the reaction. That secondary camera, again, it's the gravy, it's the side, it's not the main dish, right? It's we want to see reactions. That second camera is usually reaction camera. It's not main action camera. That's the real short answer.
I mean, another
yes.
good thing to kind of have them is just watch ESPN or ABC, and now through the lens of, okay, I'm going to see when they're going to switch. I'm going to see how often do they switch, and do they take this certain angle, and once you actually start viewing it through those lenses, well, I didn't know they did that.
Right.
Okay, well.
And it makes
so you'll get a lot more ideas that way too.
Makes a lot of sense. Marcus says football and volleyball are great sports for learning the multicam switching. Yes, because there is such a nice designation between what is an action play and what is the time between plays. Football and volleyball both are really great ways to learn that. Basketball happens really fast, so your director and your camera people really got to be on the same page. So, like we said, that will be an entire episode coming up soon, but that's all the time we really want to spend on it for today.